Tonight's the first night. As everyone knows from last week, we have a 6-week class coming up. 6 weeks to map out a plan to succeed in anything you want, to make your dreams come true. So tonight is the first week of the class, and tonight we're going to talk about the importance of setting goals in order to achieve what it is that you desire to achieve in life. So first I'll tell you guys a little personal story about a time when I was in Amsterdam, probably just for the scenery, maybe about 7 years ago. And I was with a bunch of buddies in Amsterdam, and we were there for, at this point I think I forgot, 3-4 days. And we were partying, we were having a good time. And I remember we were at, it was a pub, it was a regular bar, it wasn't a marijuana bar, it was a regular pub. But we were pretty lit up. And I remember looking over, and you know, everyone was drinking, partying, and there's a group of guys sitting at the other end of the bar, and they're very loud and they're very obnoxious, and they're causing problems, and they're picking fights with them. And at this point, I was only with one of my friends. The other ones had left. We split up. We were in different groups, and I was just one of my buddies. And I looked over, and the guys all had shaved heads, and one of the guys had a huge swastika on his shoulder, a Nazi sign. And he was wearing a tank top, and they're covered in tattoos. I mean, completely covered in tattoos. And I was this close. I was so close to going over to the guy. And I didn't, for many reasons. And the thing is at that point, maybe because I was introspecting, maybe because of I was at an elevated state, it wasn't so much anger. I didn't want to go over and at that point and express my anger and fight the guy. I wanted to go over and ask him, why you have a picture of a swastika on your arm? What is that? Why is that something you're proud of? Why is it something that you're representing? Exactly. And I didn't, but it kind of bothered me afterwards that I didn't. But it was a few months later that I really started thinking about it more and more. First of all, why it bothered me. Why I even wanted to say something to the guy, because who cares? You know what I mean? It's a free world. If the guy wants to have a swastika on his arm, it's his business. But it bothered me really badly. And at this time, I had really no identity of what it means to be Jewish, or no clue whatsoever. But it still bothered me. But more than that, I wanted to know, how did such a thing happen? I really never thought about such a thing before. I knew the Holocaust existed. I'd heard stories, but I never really thought, anything really about it. Just the war. A lot of Jews got killed, and that was it. But it started bothering me, and it started bothering me really badly, to the point that I really wanted to know. And I spent months and months researching about the Holocaust. I remember I read Hitler and Max Shimon, Mein Kampf, the treatise that he made. That started everything. I started reading, one of the most troubling books I read several of them, were about the Nazi doctors. About the doctors that were employed by the SS, Max Shimon, to experiment on Jewish people. Alive, dead, experimenting with heat, cold, with drugs, with reactions to, I won't go into detail, but if anyone who's ever read any of these accounts, it's enough to keep you up for several minutes. Afterwards, what did they all say? Oh, it was, in the name of science, it was, medical pursuits. Just like all the teams of armies who followed Hitler's orders, who said, we were just following the chain of command, what do you want from us? And it was so disturbing to me, in a way I was more disturbed, not by the animalistic, the most disgusting things you could have ever imagined that would allow, evil that has been done on behalf of a group of people that you can't even begin to relate to until you've read the accounts. You can't even possibly understand how someone would do such a thing to another human being. But what was more disturbing, it wasn't the Nazi regime, it wasn't the soldiers, it wasn't the doctors, it was the average people, the so-called human beings, the so-called public in Nazi Germany who didn't say anything. There was no public outcry. There's no I'm not saying not every single person. There's a couple people here and there who were disturbed by it, but not enough to really do anything.
Yeah.
But everyone kept their mouth shut and just let them do it. What's worse than that, though, is it extended beyond Germany, the entire modern world. We're talking about 50 years ago. We're talking about developed, supposedly culture, civilized countries like England, like America. Do you know America closed its doors to refugees escaping the Holocaust? Boats of Jewish children arrive, and America sent them back, refused them. We're not interested. Almost 2 years went by, and America did absolutely nothing. And I'm not talking about the people like Ford, IBM, Chase Bank, the Catholic Church, who supported Hitler, supplied them with weapons, supplied them with money, supplied them with computers, with cars. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the government, the so-called democratic leading society in the world. Did nothing. 2 years. You know when they did something? When they realized that Hitler wasn't going to succeed. When it got to a point where it wasn't going to work out, all of a sudden they stepped in. Oh, we're here to help the Jewish people. How convenient. This was very disturbing for me, and I couldn't understand how could such a thing be. And after reading some of the just horrific things that went on, and having countless nightmares and graphic dreams of being in the Holocaust, of being in the Inquisition, it made me start thinking about a lot of things in my life. And I realized at this point in time that I had known a lot of what it means to enjoy life. I knew what it meant to be a successful lawyer. I knew what it meant to party with movie stars and rock stars around the world. I knew what it meant to drive a Ferrari and a Lamborghini, to drive cigarette power boats. But I didn't know who I was. And I didn't know what it meant to really be a Jew. And as much as I didn't want to deal with it, it got to a point I just didn't have a choice anymore. It started basically taking over me. And whatever I tried to do, it just kept reflecting back to, why am I avoiding this? Why do I not want to deal with it? I mean, obviously, it's a pretty easy reason to know why. At the time, to me, it was like a curse. You know, the chosen people, chosen for what? To be massacred, to be destroyed in every single generation? Who wants to be part of such a thing? I didn't. But it got to a point that I didn't have a choice, because my whole life I was searching for one thing, and that's truth. I didn't know what that word meant. When I was making money, to me truth was getting paid. If you have a lot of money, this is truth. This is what life is about. But when I realized that wasn't fulfilling, I searched for other means of truth. Partying. When it came to party, I don't do things halfway. When it came to party, I'm partying like a rock star. I'm going all the way. Because if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, if life is just about having a good time, then I want to do it at the highest level possible. You know, no half-stepping, right? And I did it. All these things I did to all of my abilities and all my capacity. But time and time again, I found that that wasn't true. Maybe it was fun, maybe it was enjoyable, maybe it took my time, took my energy, and I had a good time enjoying my life, but it just left me empty time and time again. And at that point in time, I realized I just didn't have a choice. And I set out on a mission to find truth. I left my law firm, traveled around the world. I've told you guys the stories before, Buddhism, yoga, every possible ism, party, every possible thing you could imagine.
Muslim?
I read the Quran, I didn't actually practice. But it got to a point where I really didn't have a choice. I said, I need to know what it means to be Jewish. And that burning desire to know took me to Israel and left me there for almost 5 years. And it's not until recently that I returned. But I did find the truth. And the only reason that I did is because I committed myself to do whatever it took to get there. And I'll tell you guys, it was a very painful experience at many times, especially going through Tshuva and realizing all the things that I've been doing that are complete opposite of Hashem's will. Even though, as the Rebbe explains, we cannot be held responsible for something if we don't know that we're not supposed to be doing it. It didn't matter. I was still was a lot of suffering. And I gave up a lot and I lost a lot, but I gained more than any money or anything in the world can do, because I set myself to achieve a goal, and that was what it was about for me. It was about finding the truth, and nothing stood in my way, and did everything possible to get to it. And that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about tonight, about today's class. This week's Parsha, Eikev. Eikev is the heel. So, how do we connect the heel, or the lowest part of us,